What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast this week. We're your hosts, Wes, Chris, and Marcus. Before we jump into tonight's episode, we want to take just a minute and say thank you to each and every one of you guys that's been following along with us so far. It really does mean a lot to us. We really do appreciate it. If you're checking us out on YouTube, if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment. We want to hear back from you and get some feedback on the show. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can stay up to date when we release new episodes every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. When you're done there, if you don't mind, jump over to one of these platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or YouTube Music, and give us a follow there. It helps the show to grow. It's true podcast platform. You don't get the video, but you do get the audio, and you can also download an episode for later when you have a chance and you don't have time to sit down and just watch us on YouTube. Also, if you don't mind, share the show with friends. Help us get out to the masses. Tune in every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Central. And lastly, if you'd like to be a part of the show or you have a show idea, shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com, or you can jump over into our DMs on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, all searchable by Among the Ashes Podcast. So now, with all that being said, let's get into tonight's episode. On tonight's episode, we're hanging out with my buddy Ralph. Ralph's story is one of addiction that has led to redemption. He shares how he came to Christ as a young man, and he decided he wanted to go to Bible school with the intent of becoming a minister. But while he was there, he discovers that not all believers adhere to the same beliefs that Southern Christianers do. He said while he was there, he got to hanging out with some guys, and they decided that they were going to drink a little bit, and he quickly realized that he couldn't balance life and his alcohol consumption, which ultimately landed him in jail and then a stint in rehab at the Foundry Ministries. He said while he was in jail, he was detoxing, he was depressed, and he discovered a true relationship with Jesus in that process. He said he knew that his marriage, his family, and his life was spiraling out of control, and all he could do was allow God to come in and take control, and he said he hasn't looked back since then. After years of struggling with what God's calling was on his life, he's now found it, and he's actively pursuing his sobriety and helping others in their journey, all while pointing them to Christ there at the Foundry Ministries in Birmingham. Listen, if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out or encourage them to reach out. While we fully believe in prayer and we know God can do all things, we also know that some things can't be done alone, and sometimes we need some accountability and help. We're here to listen here at the show. We're here to help you out. You can email us if you need help or direction, or you can reach out to foundryministries.com, or you can give them a call at 205-428-8449. That's foundryministries.com, or give them a call at 205-428-8449, or email us here at the show, amongtheashes@yahoo.com, and we'll get you in contact with somebody. But listen, don't let shame, don't let your past, don't let your mistakes keep you from finding the freedom that God wants for your life. Help's out there, but you got to take the first steps and reach out. So with that being said, go grab you a drink, grab you a snack, sit back and relax, and enjoy You Can't Do It Alone with Ralph McCracken. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Among the Ashes podcast tonight. We're your hosts, Wes, Marcus, and Chris. Chris, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. It's been kind of a hectic day.
Yeah.
Made some changes in the room and some changes to the show.
You don't ever stop in this room, like ever.
I don't, man.
It's we were eating lunch. I come up and I'm like, what are you doing? It was fine.
Well, I thought I'd make a little bit more room and change it a little bit. I know that you and Ralph are sitting on top of each other. Inside joke. I've screwed his name up like 3 times since he's been here, but and all week long. But anyway, Marcus, how about you, man? How are you?
Good, brother.
Yeah.
Blessed to be here.
Yeah. Glad the heat is coming back a little bit and some of the cold is gone.
I'll take
the heat is in here. I can tell
it
you
is
that
in
much.
here. It's in this room, but it like Friday, it felt like a heat wave. It was like 50 maybe.
So what was crazy was like at work that morning. One morning it was like 8 degrees.
Yeah.
By that afternoon it was like 29, 30 degrees, and it
felt
okay. Yeah, it was like it's still freezing, but like this is okay.
But it feels like
Eskimo.
I can take my jacket off. Yeah. So anyway, all right. So we got a pretty good show tonight. We're bringing on Ralph McCracken. Ralph, how are you, man?
Man, I'm great. Excited to be here. Been looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, hope we didn't build it up too much. Don't want to let you down. Build your expectations and your hope, and like a balloon going out.
No, we're rookies too.
Yeah, we're figuring this thing out as we go. So
let's have low expectations. That way, I'm never disappointed.
There you go, man. That's it. That's key right there. If you never set your sights high, you're good to go.
Sounds like my wife. I think she has low expectations.
Well, I mean, if you looked in the mirror I would say I couldn't speak for Ralph's wife, but I could speak for R3. You know, they scraped the bottom of the barrel. I don't know. I
think they did it on purpose.
Yeah. You should feel sorry for them. Yeah, I don't. They knew what they were getting into. They dated us long enough.
That's right.
Candace was with me 5.5 years. If she didn't know it was downhill from there, something's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So if you've been tuned in and been following along on the show, we have been going down the path of what it means to be a man, or what a man is, and how to become a godly man in our sense. Now, I get there's people out there who aren't Christians, and maybe you don't want to go down that path. That's fine. That's up to you. But I think that if you implement these steps into your life that we're about to take, you can definitely better your life. I think that you're probably going to end up finding Jesus through it.
Christ through it.
But if that's not your bag, that's fine. That's on you. If you want to die and go to hell, whatever, that's on you. I'm just kidding. If you don't believe in Jesus, whatever, we're not going to judge you. That's up to you. We are here for you. We are here to listen, and we want your feedback. So shoot us an email. Shoot us, a direct message on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. We're there to help you out and do what we can. But I really do think that if you are a man and you want to better your life, this is something that you should listen to and something you should take into account. But not only that, if you're a female and you're listening, you've got men in your life, point them here. Or, hey, you can listen to it too and help make your man a better man. So either way, that's kind of the whole goal. So enough of me babbling. Let's bring on Ralph and let's get into Ralph's story, man. So tell us a little bit about Ralph McCracken.
Yeah, so I'm originally grew up in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Transplanted south when I was a junior in high school. So I've been down here with a few years of exception when I was in North Carolina, but I've now lived down south the majority of my life. So this is home for me. From the corner community, so this is home.
Yeah.
So
for those of you who don't know where corner is, we're going to keep it that way. We are in the corner of 3 counties, is why it's called corner.
Don't blink, you'll miss it.
That's right. That's right. And we like it that way. Stay out. No, I'm just kidding, man. That corner's grown. It's grown a lot. So how old are you?
50.
So 50. So you would have graduated, what, 94, 95?
92.
92. Wow, my math sucks.
Yeah. I was 17 when I graduated.
Okay.
My parents were in the military when I was a baby, and at 4 they put me in school. My birthday's in October, so they put me in school as early as they could to get me out of the house.
I got you. So I've been in this community my whole life, pretty much. This area within 10 miles of here. And it's grown a lot in the last probably 30 years or so, 20 years, but it's good and bad to see growth. We've got a couple of gas stations, like $8 Generals. So
I counted them on between here and my house. There's 5.
Yeah.
And I live 10 miles away from here.
Right. My thoughts on Dollar General are just designed to keep poor people poor, but either way, neither here nor there. So you went to corner?
I did not, no. So, like I said, I moved down here my junior year in high school and actually moved to Sipsey.
Okay.
My family's from Sipsey, the McCrackens, and
baby.
Good old Walker County boy.
Yeah. So went to Walker High School 1 year as a junior, and then moved back up to Ohio with my mom. And finished out my senior year, and then when that was over, man, I couldn't wait to get back.
I got you.
So I don't want anything to do with that cold weather anymore.
I feel you. Ohio State fan?
Please say no.
If you are, get out of my room.
Well,
get out of my studio if you are. If you don't say Roll Tide, you're out.
Roll Tide.
There you go.
100% Roll Tide. Even as a kid, my dad's from Alabama, so I grew up as a Roll Tide fan. But I lived 20 minutes outside of Columbus.
Sure.
And so it was hard not to be an Ohio State fan.
Sure, I get it.
But I have repented. And I was rooting. I was rooting for the refs the other night.
Right.
Just make it miserable for both teams.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like Notre Dame to me is the worst team in college football, just because.
Especially when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah,
they do it every year.
Well, not only that, but everybody's always on their jock about how great they are. And look, don't get me wrong, they're usually a decent team. You know what I mean? But look, if you're not competing for a conference championship, then you should not be able to be in it if it's going to determine other teams can't be in it. Not saying Alabama deserved it this year, but I think South Carolina I think Ohio State, not Ohio State, Ole Miss, golly, I can't think today. I think that they could have been deserving of being in it, but then you take a Notre Dame team who plays nobody, and they don't play a conference championship, and they just automatically get the bid. So, as much as I hate Notre Dame, I don't know if I hate Ohio State more. I don't like Ryan Day.
Well, I read an article this morning. They said in 2026 there probably won't be an SEC championship anymore.
Well,
either.
I'm okay with that.
They're starting to pull them all out because it's hurting you to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
They don't want to compete in it.
Yeah, and I am completely okay with that. Everybody plays more than you don't.
You can lose, which drops you in the rankings.
Right. Well, the thing is, though, is Notre Dame refuses to get into a conference. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think their basketball is, though.
Maybe I don't know.
It's just their football is still.
They cooperate.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So they play in the league, but they're not really in the league.
I got you.
They don't share the revenue of the league. That's for sure.
I got you. So you got siblings, brothers and sisters?
So got a sister. She still lives in Ohio. Got a niece up there.
Yeah.
And then I'm married. I've got 2 kids. Both of them are adults now. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a new world for me.
Yeah.
Is trying to have adult children.
Yeah.
Because it's when they're kids, you just tell them what to do, right. And it's just that's life. But I've got a 23, 24-year-old son who's got his own child now, and it's like, what do you do with that? I don't know. I don't know how to do that. Yeah. So I'm learning. Our
oldest is 20, and it's always, hey, Dad, can I go here? Can I go there? And I'm like, man, you're a 20-year-old man. Yeah, you go where you want to. Thanks for asking. It is weird.
I've got
make some changes.
Yeah, I've got one off the payroll.
Yeah,
and then I've still got one at home.
Yeah.
She's recently graduated from Wallace. She's a PTA, working in Coleman, and getting ready to start life. So
to see what life's all about.
So now I'm trying to figure out what do we do.
Yeah, I got you. Well, before we dive into your story, Ralph, what do you think a man is?
I'm not sure you can be a man if you're not able to be accountable for your actions. So if I were to have to describe a man, it's someone who's willing to be accountable for what he does.
Okay.
And I think that's the bottom line.
Right.
It's an interesting question in today's world because we are so confused about what is a man, what isn't a man. Is it just biology? Is it an attitude?
Sure.
What is it? And I think all of those play a part, but the reality is, a boy can do whatever he wants to do and not be accountable to it. But a man is the one willing to be accountable to what he does. Sure.
So that's where we're at. So, obviously in the last, since 2016, 2018, men have been under attack. Mm-hmm. It's you're either toxic masculinity or you're extremely feminine. And by feminine, I'm not talking about sexuality and preference. What I'm talking about is mama's boy. You let your parents take care of you. You let somebody else take care of you. You're not doing the things that men are supposed to do. So the extreme flip side of that was, us growing up, you rub some dirt on it and keep going. You know what I mean? Men don't cry. There's nothing wrong with you. Suck it up. Quit being a sissy, that type of thing, which I think is extremely harsh. Hasn't hurt anybody that I can tell. I mean, I grew up to be okay. But then you've got the other side of it who have become giant babies, adult babies, so to speak. They never move away from home. And if that's your bag, that's your bag. That's fine. But at some point, we are called to, I feel like we are called to step up and at least take care of ourselves. My definition of a man is a shepherd. We are called to be shepherds. Now, whether we're shepherding our own flock, as in our families, or we're taking care of other things, that's what we are, which is exactly what you're saying. So what do you think the difference in that and being a godly man means?
Well, I mean, it's all about your worldview, right? Mm-hmm. The way that you make decisions. Because, I again, just like you've said a couple times already, if the Christian thing isn't for you, I wish it were. Mm-hmm. If it's not, you can be a man. I know several great men that are without Christ.
Right.
And unfortunately, if the day comes that they stand in front of Him, they're not going to be they're not going to be acknowledged by Christ. But they're good men.
Sure.
The difference between that and a godly man is someone who looks at the world through the Scriptures. Sure. Right? Are you trying to live out your life in the way that God has called you to live? Not that you're perfect, right? I think that's key. We have in our mind that if you're a godly man, you're perfect. Well, man, there was only one that walked on this earth that was perfect.
Right.
Yeah, we fall and stumble every day.
So if that's the only definition you have is to be perfect, you're never going to be a godly man.
Right.
Again, I mean, you're accountable for what you do. Do I sin? Yes. Does everybody in this room sin? Yes.
I mean, I don't, but I'm perfect. But beyond me.
But other than you, Wes, right?
The average man.
The rest of us, being godly doesn't mean you're perfect, right? But it does mean you're trying to live your life through that biblical worldview that we find in Scripture, right? Which means that we're trying to make decisions based on what God wants us to do. When we fall short of that, what do? We repent, right? We learn, we change. That's the difference between us and animals, is we have the ability to learn from our mistakes and change.
Right.
I don't have to be the man today that I was yesterday.
Right.
I have that ability to actually change and make that conscious decision. And so for a godly man, it's someone who sees things through that biblical worldview.
Right. And I agree with that. I think the church as a whole has feminized Jesus a whole lot. We've made being compassionate and in touch with our feelings taboo, and it's not something that men do. Now, I do think that there's a time to hold and fold. I use the reference from Jordan Peterson a lot. He says he thinks men should know when to be violent, but also being capable of holding that violence, if that makes sense. So take violence out of it. We should know when to essentially be emotional or hold our emotions, who to show our emotions to and who not to show them to. And I think what we find is so many men that get caught up in that struggle. Well, if my wife or people around me see me emotional, they're going to think badly of me, or they're going to think negatively of me. Then you've got the extreme opposite that doesn't know how to contain their emotions at all, and people do think bad of them because they go off the rails. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think there's a difference, and the difference is the way you view things, the way you see it.
Just go down to the local ballpark.
Yeah.
And watch 7-year-olds play baseball.
Yeah. Because that's going to make a world of difference in their life.
Yeah. You learn real quick who's able to control emotion and who can't.
Oh yeah.
So.
I agree. Well, man, tell us about you. What's your story, man? Where have you been, and what have you gotten into?
Man, so just to give you a quick history of who I am. So, I told you that I moved down to Alabama when I was in 11th grade. I was 15. My mom and dad split when I was in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Split the canned goods. He moved to Alabama. She moved to Ohio. My dad retired from the Army, came to Alabama. My mom was in the Army as well. She went into the reserves, and we moved to Ohio. She started working at the VA in Ohio. Man, I had a great life growing up. We were poor, and not the kind of poor like you don't really know you're poor. No, we knew we were poor. Right? I mean, there was no doubt we were poor. But man, I had friends. I lived in a neighborhood. There was always something to do. Of course, that was back in the time where sun came out. You went outside,
right?
And you had to be home before the streetlights were on. Other than that, there weren't very many rules,
right?
And so, man, I had a great life growing up. Heading into my junior year, I had gotten in trouble a few times with the police, and had gotten arrested a few times when I was like 12, 13. We like to set things on fire. Our crew did. We burned an old cornfield. And,
oh wow!
And then a few other stupid, mischievous things.
Allegedly, all this is alleged.
No, it was proven. Yeah, no, the judge proved it. So yeah, there's no allegedly there. It is sealed though,
Yeah,
so
sorry,
you know.
that's good.
I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations covers everything else because they didn't kill anybody.
Right,
so
right,
everything else I'm clear of. You know, I had a great life. I was a terrible student. Hated school. Hated everything about school. We didn't have ADHD back then. We had to get in your face and scream at you to sit down and shut up, and that didn't work well with me. I would go into the school year deciding which grade I would just fail, like which class I would fail and do summer school. Like, I'm not going to do anything in this English class this year. Just go ahead and admit it. And and honestly, man, I just got tired of it. You know, no one around me was Christian. I didn't really even know what that meant. I had one guy that would come around every now and then that he went to church, went to Free Will Baptist Church, and every now and then I would go to church with him, not very often, but otherwise, I mean, it was just all of us, but I got tired of being bad. I wasn't very good at it either, which made it worse, right? Was that I wasn't very good at Breaking Bad? I really wasn't.
Yeah.
So I decided, my mom, going into my junior year in high school, my mom decided the VA was going to send her to nursing school. And the nursing school was about an hour and a half away, and she would have to go away for 3 or 4 days at a time, go to class and do all that. It would be for a year. My sister had just graduated high school, so I was going to, when she was gone, my sister was going to be in charge, which was not going to be a good idea. It was going to be party time at the McCracken house. And so I asked if it would be possible to move to Alabama with my dad. You know, what would happen if I moved down there with him for a year? I asked him, he said, sure, come on down. He didn't really know all of what I was into because I would beg my mom not to tell him because I didn't want both parents knowing how bad I was. So I don't really know how much he knew. He just knew when I asked to come down, he didn't hesitate. He said, yeah, come on. And my mom was going to be gone, so she was like, great, I know you're taken care of, so you're so I moved down here. And for me, it was a fresh start. Man, this is a way for me to get started somewhere where nobody knows me. Yeah. It's very rare you go somewhere where you literally know nobody. Yeah. And I knew no one. I had family that lived down here, but other than I knew no kids. I didn't know what school I'd go to. I didn't know any of that.
Sure.
And so moved to Alabama that summer. Got registered for school. And we had to ride a school bus to school from Sipsey to Jasper. And I tell you, I think it was the third day of school. It was new school, so everything was new. It's first couple of days of school. We don't really know what's going on. Well, that third day of school on the way home, probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me happened on that third day. Young girl named Patience Deskins invited me to church. Now, here I am. I'm looking for a new beginning, looking for a new start. And here's my chance to get to know some people, right? I'm trying not to be trouble, right? Because one, my dad will kill me,
right?
Right. I wasn't scared of my mom. My dad will kill me.
Yeah. So
we got to stay out of trouble. So she invited me to church that night. It was a Wednesday night, and I said, absolutely, I'll come down there. It was Pisgah. It was literally a quarter of a mile away. I rode my bike to church that night. And I loved it. Everybody welcomed me in, and man, less than a month later, man, I gave my life to Christ. I knew the name Jesus. I really didn't have any idea who he was.
Right.
And man, just such a welcoming church. They knew my family. They, several people there knew who I was, and just opened their arms and welcomed me in. And so that really is where my journey started at Pisgah. It all started because that girl with long red hair invited me to church on the school bus.
So what you're saying is essentially our story, how it happened with us. We grew up in church and we weren't forced to go to church. Like, we wanted to go, but knew Jesus, but we didn't know Jesus. And we started going to Dilworth because a friend of ours wanted to introduce me to a girl, and so we ended up dating friends, and which didn't last very long for story wise, but at that point, as that grew, well, it's like we knew Dilworth was our home. Like if we were going to church, that's where we were going, and we'd gone to Summerton for years, and then whenever I met Candace, 6 or 8 months into our relationship, she's like, well, I want to go to church. And I was like, well, if we're going to go anywhere, I'm going to Dilworth. And at 18, I committed my life to Christ. Marcus come in a couple years after that, So yeah, it's funny. Everything you're saying is mirroring what we've done. It's just kind of crazy how God works all that out. But anyway.
So man, here I was, fresh start, man, new heart, friends that were amazing. So all the effort I put into getting in trouble, now I just put into doing good, and it was a great time. I remember when that year was over and I moved back to Ohio. I said, well, I want to go graduate where I went to school all these years, right? Stupidest thing I could have done. And I literally cried every night for a month when I moved back up there because no one there, I didn't have anything in common with them. I didn't have any friends up there. I had people I hung out with before. Yeah. My life's radically different. All my friends were here. And man, it was the most miserable year I think I could have. It was horrible.
You think it had to do with anything of you not being around Christ-centered things as much?
100%.
Besides just people, too?
Yeah, 100%, right?
Confirmation. That's where you need to be.
This
is not.
This is not where God, where I should be.
Yeah.
And I tried going to church with the guy that I was telling you about who would come around there and now and then. I decided to go to his church, and I went to church, but man, no one around me was trying to live a life like I was.
Right.
And so, interestingly enough, so my senior year of high school is the first year I ever made the AB honor roll. Like ever. Yeah. Like not even kindergarten. Like ever in my life I made the AB honor roll.
So what changed? Not having anything to do, or you just the change in you.
Yeah, it was just like a freshness of it. Like I desired things that I never desired before.
Yeah.
And had made plans. All of my life, my plan was to join the Army. Mm-hmm. That was the only plan I had. And then that when I went up there for that senior year, I wanted more than that. I've thought for the first time in my life I could have more than that. Right? I could have more than what just what my parents had. My dad joined the Army to get out of Sipsey.
Yeah.
Because, him and his 8 brothers and sisters were just farmhands.
Right.
My mom joined the Army to get out of a place called Mudlick, West Virginia.
Which is essentially probably Sipsey.
It was Sipsey in West Virginia. Yeah. Right? That wasn't the life I had. And so, for the first time, I felt like I didn't have to settle. And so, and I vividly remember, I took Spanish 1 as a senior in high school. That's how far behind in my studies that I was. Spanish 1. And I remember in one of my math classes, I don't remember what the number on the math class was, but the teacher asked me a question, and I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Are you making fun of me?" I was like, "No, ma'am. Why do you think I'm making fun of you?" She said, "Well, you said yes, ma'am, and I think you're trying to make fun of me." I was like, "Well, I've spent the last year in Alabama, and if you don't say yes, ma'am to the teacher,
right,
they'll kill you."
Right.
And she almost sent me to the principal's office. It was just so radically different than the way everyone else was acting that she thought I was being condescending to her. And so it was a rough year for me, but it was, I was doing things I've never done before.
Right.
So that senior year ended, graduation, day after graduation, I'm riding in the car back with my dad to Alabama. I was like, I'm coming back down there. And so I moved back down here and have been here ever since. So
I think sometimes we, being blessed enough to be born in the South, and I know you Northerners that listen, or Westerners or Easterners, you're all going to probably say, no, we live in the best part of the country, and rightfully so. There's great things about everywhere, but in the South, there's just respect. Even if you don't mean it, you still give it. You know what I'm saying? So I went to New York with work, or New Jersey, and at the time I was like, man, these people are hateful. And in reality, no, they're just the way they are. Yeah. You know what I mean? And and we take that hospitality for granted, and it's really a unique perspective that you're sharing that within a year you see the difference. And then also the fact of what we take for granted of how much Jesus there is in the South. Mm-hmm. And that can be a bad thing. It can make you desensitized and make you numb. It can push you away. I guess it can make your salvation experience maybe not genuine, just because you're going along with the flow of what everybody else is doing. But at the same time, I think that it's a huge advantage too, because you are able to separate right from wrong when it comes to living for Christ versus not. Instead of, well, maybe this is right or wrong. No, you draw the line in the South, and we were talking about in Sunday school today, I'm known to have a bit of a potty mouth at times, and I'm not proud of that. Cursing does not offend me, but it does a lot of people here in the South, and so I know when to hold and when to fold, but I'm also one that if I stub my toe, a 4-letter word's coming out, or if I get excited at a football game, I'm trying to hold it depending on who I'm around, so I think there's advantages and disadvantages to where you live, but it's a huge blessing, I feel like, more than a curse, living here in the South and being able to find that just genuine care for others.
Yeah.
We respect others and we care about others, because that's what the Bible teaches us, to love your neighbor. And I think we do that by default, because that's just the way we're raised and the way we're taught.
Well, your grandma always sat on the front porch and waved at every car that drove by.
Yeah.
That's just the way you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird that we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kid, I remember you'd have to wave at every car that you drove by.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're constantly waving. When's the last time you waved at anybody?
Yeah. If you're on a motorcycle or in a Jeep,
I mean, you do it now and somebody's liable to turn around and come after you. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So, man, I mean, I was a starving kid, and Jesus was filling me up in a way that I've never been filled before. Mm-hmm. And that's what drove me back to get back to Alabama.
So that was a question right here that I wrote down a while ago while you were talking. What woke you up or made you realize you needed to change? Was there ever just some come to Jesus that just really changed your life, made you realize there's more to life, there's really more than how I'm living now? Is there anything that just woke you up, or anything that just being that whole process of being down here and going to church and
I think it was
revealing himself to you?
Yeah, I was so tired of being what I was.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I'm thankful, and I'm thankful it was Jesus I was introduced to. Because had it been another religion, had it been something else that could have caught my attention, I'm not saying I wouldn't have chosen that, because I was looking for something that could be different in my life than what I currently had. Now that is God orchestrating His plan out for me.
Sure, 100%.
Right? At the time, I'm just like, hey, this sounds great. Let's do it. I mean, but in reality, I'm a kid from Ohio who moved to Sipsey, Alabama. That doesn't, I mean, that, you don't.
Culture shock, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. Yeah. And but God, He allowed me to get so miserable to the point where when I made the change, I was ready to change. Yeah. I didn't have to be convinced. they said, hey, here's what the Bible says. You're a sinner. Well, I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's how you can be redeemed. Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, I probably was the easiest salvation Pisgah's had in a long time.
Yeah. And I think that's, while that's amazing too, like, and maybe we're getting ahead of the game, but I think we're so excited to see somebody come to Jesus that oftentimes we fail to disciple people.
Mm-hmm.
We get so caught up in the salvation experience, which is amazing. You know, it within itself is amazing, and in all honesty is enough. But we as human beings can't accept that it's enough. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like we get in the way and we begin to chase our rabbits because I think we build the salvation experience up so much that, hey, once we get saved, and I hate that term, but once we give our life to Christ, everything's hunky dory. Yeah. And then when life hits, we realize it's not, and the problem is we don't disciple enough. Right. We essentially, okay, yep, here's a sword and here's a shield, now go out there and fight them wolves. Well, and you don't know how to tote the sword and shield.
A lot of times we get saved and that's it. That's enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's really not. That's when your life with Christ starts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
not the end. It's just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So
I was fortunate that I had a pastor who believed that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he poured into me in ways that man, I was eating it up.
Do you remember his name?
Wayne Shelton.
Yeah.
He was a pastor at a local church here for a while, but this was when he was at Pisgah.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke my heart when he left and went to Florida.
Yeah.
He had such an impact on my life. I still think about him now and I think, don't do that. Wayne would be embarrassed if you did that.
Right.
Right. I can't call him Wayne. It's even in my head when I'm thinking about him, it's Brother Wayne.
Yeah. That's the way Chris is with me. Like, I can't do that. Wes is going to be mad at me. Chris was in my youth group. He and Alicia were in my youth group, and I can't screw up enough to run them off. I don't get it.
Well, at this point, we're just here to help you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's more of like a charity at this point.
Yeah, it's not that it's they're rooted enough to know that, hey, we're luckily he didn't screw us up. Now maybe we can fix him. So
I think one of you two is a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
Or maybe you both are.
Yeah.
I think they feed off each other.
For sure. Well, Marcus, you hang in there like a hair in a biscuit too, brother. I know we're family, but still.
I've been with y'all the whole time.
Yeah,
so actually, we were actually in a youth band together as well, like all three of us.
Yeah.
We've been around a long time.
Did y'all have a mullet?
No.
But I did have
hair.
Had some sweet mohawks though.
Yeah, we had some mohawks.
Yeah. It is crazy how the Lord's brought us full circle like that, just to see him as a young man, teenager, come into Christ and know Christ, and how God used him in ministry and Wesley as well, and just me introduced to the group and helping you in youth ministry and how we all got to minister then, and it's brought it full circle back to here. It's pretty awesome.
I've not thought about that yet, but that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's definitely a God thing.
I think God puts people in your life like you don't realize it, but somewhere down the road, it's crazy. Like Chloe, my daughter, has a friend, her dad was actually somebody I couldn't stand in school. You know what I mean? But we didn't get along, just I guess because he went to Corner and we went to Dora, and we hung out a couple of times.
Is it JC?
County line robbery.
Johnny Cox.
Yeah.
So
Well, if you knew Johnny Cox back in the day, Johnny was
in the day, and it was like Corner and Dora didn't get along. You know what I mean? But we hung out
back in the day.
There.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure they still do.
I'm telling you, man. Like,
there was a reason we didn't play. Our high schools didn't play when I went to school.
Yeah.
It would have been terrible.
It was rough.
But Johnny's a good guy.
Yeah, he's
back
a good
in the
dude,
day,
man. He was a hothead.
We really didn't get along, and now our daughters are best friends.
What's funny is I remember what all started that. We were at the Jiffy Check one day, and I was working Castle City or something, and we went to the gas station, and Johnny's just kind of mean mugging us, and Marcus being now you got to realize, Marcus had a brother that was 6'4", 6'5", 400 pounds. He's huge. And loved to fight. He didn't care. Now, straight up, I would have fought Les before I fought Marcus, because Marcus could throw hands too. They grew up fighting each other. But all of a sudden one day Marcus, Johnny's staring at him. Marcus is like, what? Like, what are you staring at? Well, Johnny, being the hothead he was, I didn't know who he was. He starts popping off, and I'm like, oh, God, we're finna get killed. I'm finna have to get in this fight. And I didn't fight. I didn't like to fight, It's like, man, I'm finna get my tail beat. Man, Marcus, come on, let's go. And they're just kind of jawing each other. Well, I think it's over, and then we're hanging out in Food World parking lot, which is the pig now, and all of a sudden Johnny rolls up, and it's on again. It's like, y'all don't even know each other. Just stop. Like, y'all, it's like, oh, I know you. It's like two dogs.
But it was crazy. We hung out after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And we were cool.
This is the same night or different?
No. This is over a few years time span. Yeah. But in all honesty, Johnny, he was a good dude, but like he just liked to fight. Yeah. And he'll tell you that. He's like, I just like to fight. I don't care who it was. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what guys do, right? You get at each other, and then you go, "What were we even fighting about?" I don't even remember. Let's go hang out.
Friends, for sure.
But now that goes, is that a godly thing or a worldly thing?
Well, I think God uses the simple things to confound the wise, right? So if that's the case, sometimes He'll use the stupid things to bring people together. 100%. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we do stupid things, but God takes and uses that for His glory if we allow Him to. I've been on this whole prosperity kick lately, name it and claim it and all that stuff. But you know what? In spite of the idiots out there in the world who are spreading those lies and things like that, God's still using them in their ignorance for people's lives to be changed. They may die and go to hell. You know what I mean? But people are still coming to Christ through it, So God uses the evil things just as much as He does the good.
Well, that's what Paul is talking about when he talks about those who are preaching the gospel out of their own personal desires.
Yeah.
Right? At least the gospel's still being preached, even if they're doing it for the wrong purposes.
That's right.
So
I like the part you were talking about a while ago, like when you went to back to Ohio. I've never moved off that far or anything like that, but I've lived in Hoover for a while and a couple of years, and I love living there. I love the convenience there. You know what I mean? You was right down the street from anything. I love living there, but it wasn't home. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I always it was crazy because the weekends, instead of going to Hoover or Birmingham or whatever, I would always come back home. Come back here.
If you look back,
I always wanted to come back home.
If you look back at that time, though, those 2 years for you did better than you were doing when you were at home.
Yeah.
And that was me. Like whenever I gave my life to Christ, Marcus is my cousin. He's my brother. We different moms that are sisters, but we might as well. And I know it's Alabama, sounds weird, but he is my cousin. But I don't have biological brothers. He and Les are my brothers. We grew up that way. We're together all the time. But when I gave my life to Jesus, I walked away from him. That was the hardest thing I had ever had to do. Yeah. But the Lord told me, He said, they can come with you, but you can't go with them, And luckily, within a couple of years of that, Marcus, Les, both, Les had his problems and his issues, but we all do, And I think that sometimes we have to step away in order to gain perspective of what we had, or step away again, and then realize, oh, I really did have it good there. Let me come back. I think sometimes it just takes that for us to better ourselves and to better our relationships with people and with Christ as well.
And that's why I was asking you: was there a point in your life where you realized, or there was just a big change in moment? Because sometimes we have to hit rock bottom, before I can't do anything else. You know what I mean? Before I realize that God's, my only way out of this, and He's been there the whole time.
We ain't got to Ralph's rock bottom yet.
Sometimes it's like that. That's and God allows us.
That was the PG version of rock bottom.
Yeah. God allows
the R-rated is coming later.
Yeah. Director's cut.
Yeah.
So I get what Marcus is saying though, because we moved off to Gardendale. Convenience is nice. It's the mini Hoover now. All these things, but man, it's like spiritually and marriage wise, we were terrible.
Yeah.
For the whole time we were there, we come back home and it's like everything change, like you know, in that which I know, I mean, it wasn't us, it was obviously God changing us, but I mean, it was rough.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, it does make it tough. You know, but for me, leaving home, as in Dilworth, was the greatest thing I've ever done. It was hard, and I went through and I'm just now coming out of it. I went through a long 13 years of walking away from youth ministry and my home church and into the desert. But I do realize God placing us at High Point was probably the best thing for my children. Would they have listened to me and grown, wanted to go to church and wanted to be in church had I been their student pastor? Probably not, you know, knowing all of Dad's faults. And then in spite...
Could you have differentiated them?
Yeah. I mean, I think I could have, because that's always kind of been my goal is even at work, like my boss is one of my closest friends at work, but if he needs to get in my tail. Yeah. At 5:30, it's over. You know what I mean? Like, we're still friends. We still hang out, whatever. But, you know, I question God a lot on that. But me leaving home opened my eyes to who God really is. It hasn't taken the entire 13 years for me to realize that. I realized it pretty quick. I just didn't want to accept it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I wanted to try it my way. God, I've done it your way, and all that's done is brought heartache and hurt, so I'm going to try it my way, which ended up bringing worse heartache and worse hurt. But I've learned to see people for people, in spite of their flaws and their issues and their problems. Like, people are people. I still need to love you. I still need to be there for you. Doesn't mean I don't hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. But, you know, hey, you smoke meth every day? Okay, great. What can we do to help you? What can we do to change you? That doesn't mean you abuse me and take advantage of me. I'm not going to buy your meth for you. But I will be there to listen when you're struggling. Mm-hmm. I will be there to help you when you fall and you need a place to sleep. We can talk about it as long as you ain't going to steal me blind. You know what I mean? Like, there's parameters and boundaries I guess we need to set, but we've got to see people as Christ sees people, you know. Hold them accountable without judging. Right. Does that make sense?
It does.
I can't tell you what you're going through isn't hard if I've never been through it, if I've never struggled with it. So what I need to do is I need to see you as in, hey, this could have easily been me, and it's not. So what can I do to help?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So, so you graduated high school.
Yeah, so graduated high school, came back to Alabama, and within a year or so, I felt like the Lord was calling me to into ministry. Mm-hmm. And was more than willing to do it, man. Was on a pathway that I felt like God was leading me. Man, I was living a great life. So graduated in 92, graduated from college in 97, got married in 97, had a kid in 2000, a kid in 2023.
I graduated in 97. Anyway, go ahead.
Man, ouch.
I was a freshman in 92.
Yeah, I was in 8th grade.
I was born in 92.
Yeah, Chris was 1 year old in 92.
Let me go get my pawpaw hat and put it back on. So, man, I mean, life was great. It really was. You know, we decided in 2024 that we were packing up everything we owned and moved to North Carolina to go to Bible college. And I mean, I've got a 3-year-old and a newborn, and we packed up a 3-bedroom place and moved to North Carolina into an apartment. And spent 2 years up there. It was an incredible 2 years. I learned so much. Graduated with my bachelor's degree in biblical studies. Decided, again, that wasn't home for us. We knew that it was temporary moving there. We moved back to Alabama. In 2008 or so, I started with my master's degree at Samford, getting my master's of divinity, and that's really where life started kicking me in the teeth, honestly. So through that whole time, I just didn't know what God wanted me to do. I tried children's ministry. I tried youth ministry. I tried itinerant preaching. I never felt the call to pastor a church. I just don't think I can be that kind of a people person. I mean, it's just not me.
Well, good for you for recognizing that, because a lot of people don't.
No, they don't. And you know, I feel like God's gifted me in ways that benefit the church, but it's not to be the one up front preaching. Which isn't the preaching part. It's the everything else the pastor has to do part.
And that's the thing, is people don't see that. People see the glory of, hey, he's the man, he's on the stage, he's the one speaking, and blah, 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 and he's getting all the praise and all this, but you're also getting all the butt chewings.
Yeah,
You're also
and I really don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't care that your chihuahua has a broken foot.
Right.
I really don't.
Right.
And I don't want to pretend like I have to sit there and listen that I do.
I get it.
And so, man, I could not figure out what God wanted me to do. And so, in probably the greatest mistake of my life, and probably the most incredible thing I've ever done, I decided, since I didn't know what God wanted me to do, go to get your master's degree. Mm-hmm. And Sanford was both amazing, and as I look back at it now, was the biggest heartbreak that I ever had. So what was amazing about it was being around so many different people of various backgrounds. Because up until now, right, I'm Southern Baptist, right? Pisgah's Southern Baptist Church. I went to a Southern Baptist college. I'm in this Southern Baptist world. If you ain't like me, you're going to hell.
Right.
Right? I mean, I was young and dumb.
Yep.
Well, I go to Sanford, man. I'm hanging around Lutherans and Episcopalians and all these different backgrounds, and yet they're all just like me. And it was really encouraging and eye-opening to me. But it introduced me to some things that I thought I had put away in my life because my dad was an alcoholic, and I swore I would never be like him. And when I got saved at 15, I did not take another drink. Because I didn't want to be like my dad. I didn't do it because I thought alcohol was wrong. I did it because I didn't want to be like my dad. Well, I got to hanging around with the Episcopalians and the Lutherans, and they're talking about going out on the weekend and drinking, and I'm like, well, that's wrong. And all of a sudden I started going, well, maybe it isn't so wrong.
Right.
Because here's this guy, man. He's as godly as a guy I know. I mean, I hear him. I talk to him every day. We're in classes together. I'm reading what he's doing. He's just like me, only he's got some of these other thoughts and opinions about things that maybe it is okay if I do that. And so it ignited something within me that I thought was dead. And that's the desire to do what I wanted to do. Right? Because we have this belief that life is about what you're not allowed to do.
Right.
Well, I wanted to live a life that I could just do whatever I wanted to do.
Sure.
And so I still remember standing in the kitchen and talking with my wife at our home in Sweetwater Subdivision, and I remember talking to her, and we agreed, because honestly, she had the same desire, that we would casually start drinking. I mean, we made the conscious decision. We talked about it. Here's why we think it's okay, and we made that conscious decision. And that was the worst mistake I ever made in my life, because it opened up something in my heart that I had not experienced before, because that casual drinking turned into a monster. Yeah. And very quickly. Yeah. Because soon after that, right, blew out an ACL, so in pain. Well, I'm in the medical field, so I know I don't want to go get on medication for the pain. So how do you numb the pain? Yeah. Right? So then I start having back issues, and a little more. Well, then my Dad dies. A little more.
Mm-hmm.
Then my mom dies, and I just jump in the bottle.
Yeah.
At that point. This life that had been so perfect, right? Wife, 2 kids, home, great career. And here I am, just, I wake up to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there's one day in my life I could change, it would be the day standing in that kitchen, giving myself permission to do what I knew I wanted to do.
So I had a conversation with the guy the other day, and I said, if we could ever figure out how to trigger our dopamine levels in our brain without substances, or figure out, if we could figure out how to stimulate our dopamine in a way that whatever that is what we become addicted to, then there would be no drug pandemic, there would be no cheating, there would be all these different things. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, I feel like mental health in this country is not something that is taken seriously enough. And I think that just like you said a while ago, there wasn't ADHD when we were kids. You know, I always said that kid ain't got ADD. He just ain't had his tail beat, you know. So, and I don't mean like beating your kids, but I mean he hasn't been disciplined, you know. But I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 next week. It's nothing from squirrel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and to focus and to just sit down and do a task like at work, it's just get it off my desk. So I'm not detail oriented, which I need to be. I make mistakes because I'm not. I just want it off my desk. I just want to check that box. You know, I want to get it over with. So I think that we find reasons and excuses to hit those dopamine receptors, which is what dopamine does, right? It makes us feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, you hit on a minute ago, we think that Christianity is a list of things that you can't do.
Right.
Not a list of the things that you can do. Do I think drinking is a sin? I mean, to have a beer? No. I know what it does to me, though. 1's going to be 2. 2's going to be 5. Pretty soon I'm going to be drinking on the weekends, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to lead to more for me. Like, I like whiskey. I like the taste of whiskey. But I know me. You know, I'm not going to have just that 1 drink. I'm going to have 2, and then I'm going to start feeling good, and then I'm going to start just kind of letting my inhibitions down, and then I'm going to be justifying why, well, you know, I didn't do anything crazy, so it's okay, you know. And I'm not saying that you're going to go to hell for that, but what I am saying is eventually it's going to open up a door for most people because they don't understand that filling that hole, you need to fill that hole with Christ. You need to stay in this word, and you need to stay on your knees talking to him daily. That's why I think Paul emphasizes to pray without ceasing, you know, to constantly be in front of Christ. That way we don't fill ourselves up with things that send us into a spiral.
Yeah, well, it's a coping mechanism.
Right.
It is all it is.
We don't know how to cope. We don't teach that.
And that's all. Well, you would think me, right? Here I am, Bible college trained, seminary trained, right, would be able to handle my own grief in a way that is responsible and reasonable, right? Because I would never tell you, if you came to me and said, hey, I'm in constant pain every day and both of my parents have died, I wouldn't say, go home and have some Jack Daniels.
Right.
Right? That isn't what I'd say to you, but that's what I said to myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of things we do in secret. You know what I mean? We know, and again, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not saying anybody who drinks or anything like that is in the wrong, but what I'm saying is that for different individuals or different things, and the things that I didn't learn in seminary was, well, what I did learn was exactly what you're saying. Don't tell people to go home and drink. Tell them to go home and pray. But nobody ever taught me to do that for myself. It's just understood.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and so...
And we need to be taught that. It needs to be something driven home, even in seminary. Hey, look, because I hate to tell you, ministers, whether you believe it or not, most ministers in their mind are a wreck.
They're broken.
They're broken.
Totally agree.
You think about it. They're constantly dealing with all of your crap on top of theirs, you know? Mm-hmm. And then they're putting yours before theirs. So theirs is never getting dealt with. That's why they end up in adultery, they end up in drugs or alcohol or whatever, because they're trying to cope because they've never been taught how to cope with things the correct way.
Right. Or they choose not to.
Yeah.
And so with me, that was a coping mechanism. I'm 100% guilty, right? I'm not trying to say, well, I justify. Look, what I did was wrong,
Sure.
right? Because it went from what I wanted it to be casual, have a good time, watch the game, no big deal. But once that door was open, right, and it's a door that had been closed for a really long time. I mean, I went from 15 to 35, never took a drink. And at 35 decided I was mature enough I wouldn't turn out to be like my dad. And I'll be dang if I didn't turn out to be just like my dad.
Right.
And so what I would caution anyone who's listening, can I say drinking a beer is wrong? I'm not going to say that, right? That's for you to determine. That's for a decision for you to make. But are you opening yourself up to something you can't even see yet?
That's right.
Because you're letting something like that creep into your life. And it's not because, I'm just having it to enjoy something, right? I'm having it because I had a tough day at work.
Mm-hmm.
That's coping.
Yeah.
Well, I'm having it because my kids are driving me crazy. That's coping.
Right.
Right. That's not healthy.
Right.
Right. And so the way I look at it now, it isn't so much is it right or wrong, but is it going to help you become more of what you want your life to be?
That's key, I think, to think right there is what is your ultimate goal?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a drunk and lose everything, and or do you want to have some sort of successful, peaceful, happy life, which maybe you can do with alcohol, but
do you want your happiness to depend on that bottle?
Depend on that bottle, right?
And so that's really the question. And is that bottle getting you closer or further away from what you want?
Right.
All right, to be a healthy, godly man. If that's what you're striving for, is that bottle helping you get closer or further away from that?
Right.
And that's what we've got to decide. It's not a matter of whether or not it's right or wrong. Is it a sin or is it not a sin?
Right.
That's not the question. The question is that making you more godly? Because if it's not, then it is a sin.
Then it's becoming sin. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so the beer, the whiskey, the whatever, the crystal meth, the heroin, the credit cards, the McDonald's, whatever you're using to cope, right? That's what we talked about this morning in church, right? Talking about our health and what we do to cope with things, right? That's nothing but a tool, right? That's the means. The question is, are you willing to deal with what's going on inside that's causing you to reach out and try and do those things? Sure. And I'd lost sight of that. Again, I mean, of anyone in the world who would have ever thought you'd go to recovery, I was not that guy. I mean, nothing about my life pointed to this guy's going to wind up in recovery at 39, however old I was when I went, 2016. But yet here I was. All right, so I can thinking about that time, January 9th of 2016 was the night I got arrested. Now, it's the first time I've been arrested since I was 12.
Sure.
Right? I mean...
A little different.
It was a little different this time. I've had one speeding ticket my entire life, right? So I'm no trouble to the cops. No one. I'm living. You look at my life and you go, well, that's a good dude.
Yeah.
And so sitting in a restaurant shopping parking lot on January the 9th, with the biggest bottle I could buy, I said, I'm going to finish this, and then I don't know what. My wife hates me. My kids hate me. I'm just done. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if that meant just my entire life would forever be changed, or if that meant I was done. I really don't know. I just knew it was, I'm going to finish this and then it's over. That night, I remember pieces of it, not all of it, pieces of it. I remember the cops pulling me out of the truck, and I remember being in the back of the cop car. And then I remember sitting at the jail and the cop telling me just shut up, because I don't know.
Sure.
I was, it's crazy. They take your shoelaces, but give you your shoes back. So I just flopped around. And they put me in, I guess, the drunk tank or whatever it was. It was at nighttime because it was dark out. I remember watching TV only to find out the next day they don't have TV. I was hallucinating it, but I was watching TV. Thinking, what am I going to do? Man, you ain't supposed to be here.
Right.
This isn't the Ralph everyone knows. This I'm not supposed to be here. What in the world's going on? And I assumed my wife would come bail me out. Yeah, she didn't. So I spent 8 days in Gardendale jail.
Wow.
For it was drunk and disorderly, because I wasn't driving. I was sitting still. And she threatened everybody at the church, "Don't come bail me out."
Smart woman.
Yeah, I tell you, it was the hardest thing she could have ever done, and it was hands down the best thing she ever did.
Yeah.
She said, "If you're there, I know where you are, and I know you're safe."
You're safe. Yeah.
So I spent 8 days in Gardendale jail for drunk and disorderly. I'm not sure anybody's ever spent 8 days in jail for drunk and disorderly.
Yeah.
Because they only do court like every 2 weeks in Gardendale, right? So, and this was like a Thursday, and so there was no court that Friday, so I had to wait till the next Friday. So, and man, I was mad.
Sure.
I was mad at everybody. She you have to collect call, right? I mean, you can't, whatever. So I'm collect calling her, and I know one phone number in my, like I have no other phone numbers in my head.
Sure.
Like I have two phones. One is hers. And so I call her from jail. And she knows I'm in jail because I don't think she'll admit it, but I think she Life 360'd me and called the cops on me. I'm going to be honest with you. Because now she won't admit that, but I have a sneaky suspicion because her and my daughter, I think Life 360'd me and called the cops. But